Welcome to my podcast, Chaotic Harmony. I am your host, Angela Schultz. If you catch yourself making a bet with someone over how long your child will last in kindergarten class before the principal calls you, then I am here to tell you that you are not alone. My husband and I were placing bets on how long my son would last. My husband said something along the lines of, I bet he won't make it the first day of school before he is sent to the office. And like usual, my big fat mouth blurted out, he probably will be in the principal's office the entire first week. We both laughed about all of that, but we also knew both scenarios were not too far-fetched. And because I am always right, I unfortunately won that bet. It wasn't exactly a fun win, but I've heard some people say a win is a win. You see, my son Matthew was a very active baby right from the start. And I am not talking the average active baby. I'm talking it was almost like he was hocked up on drugs and alcohol and whatever, along with an IV drip of Monster, okay? And side coffee even. That's how busy he was. He climbed up on everything just to get something he wasn't supposed to. He was only interested in the toys that were already being played with. He basically showed all of his siblings how to do everything I told them not to do. And he loved showing me that I was wrong whenever I told him, don't touch that, honey, that's always. I had to actually rush Matthew to the hospital one time because my don't touch that, honey, that's always didn't seem to register in his very busy 3-year-old mind. And honestly, I'm not sure why I always said that to him because it never really helped at all. Helped the other kids, just Matthew's a different breed, I guess. Matthew thought his dad's fishing lure was pretty cool looking, and I can only assume that all of my attempts to stop him from looking at it or even touching it only fueled him to want to touch it even more. Oh, it sure was a cool looking lure. All the way up until it was stuck in his thumb. He came running up to me with tears running down his very red face. His mouth was wide open as if he were screaming, but there was no sound coming out. And then he threw his body onto the floor in front of me and began rubbing his thumb into our carpet very aggressively, only making that really cool looking fishing lure get in there deeper. I know he was trying to make it better, but he was only making it worse. Once I actually figured out what the hell was actually going on, I tried to stop Matthew from making it worse. Obviously, I was a mom. I wanted to help him out. But every time I tried to get it out of his tiny little thumb, it got worse. So I needed to bring him in. He was hard to keep still, so I couldn't even try to even take a look at it, let alone help him. And every time I attempted to get it out, once again, it made it worse. That barb on those lures, I mean, it definitely, I could honestly say Matthew was hooked. He was hooked. Thankfully, my friend was there visiting us, and actually she was kind of there to help me get my laundry caught up. And I was always told things happen for a reason. And I believe that she was there not to help me with laundry because she very quickly turned into my babysitter so that I can get Matthew the medical attention that he needed. All that fishing lure needed was 3 nurses holding Matthew down as he was wrapped up like a frickin' burrito, 1 very patient doctor, 3 stitches, and in return, Matthew got 1 lollipop and a couple stickers slapped onto his chest. With that lure experience being a traumatic event and all, you would think Matthew would have, tried to listen to all of my other, don't touch that, honey, that's always. But I'm talking about my son. Who the hell am I kidding? He's like me. I was also new to the boy mom title at that time. Better yet, I was new to having more than one child. I very quickly went from 1 to 3 in less than a year. So I assumed everything Matthew was doing was just because he would grow out of it eventually. Not to mention the fact that he was a twin. So there was like I said, 3 kids running around like they were chickens with their freaking heads cut off. So I chalked up all of his behavior to attention seeking and also being a little boy that may or may not have been full of piss and vinegar with a side of sugar. They do say boys will be boys, and no. As Matthew got a little older, his shenanigans got a little bigger. My grandma made sure to always remind me of that every single time I called her to cry or vent. She just kept saying, small babies equals small problems. Big babies equals big problems. Thanks, Grandma. That helps me so much. The problem was Matthew seemed to do things to get other people's attention, especially when it was at his own expense. For example, pissing on a police officer's tire in broad daylight. Matthew gave in no fucks. He would think something up in his tiny little mind, and without a single care in the world, he would just go off and do it. No matter what it was, or how much trouble he was in, he did it anyways. The day I drove into our new driveway, Matthew noticed our neighbor's police car parked very peacefully, might I add, in its spot. Matthew's little mind told him, hurry up and piss on that tire. Everyone will think it's funny. No, I didn't think it was funny. But he was correct. The other kids thought it was funny. But they weren't laughing because Matthew was pissing on the cop tire. No, they were laughing because when Matthew went to piss on the cop tire, he decided to pull his pants all the way down to his ankles and bearing his whole ass to our new neighborhood. Now that he is almost 20 years old, I can try to laugh about that, kind of, but back then, yeah, that shit was embarrassing. Even though Matthew was driving me nuts most of the damn time, and he still is, I just want to throw that out there. He is still driving me nuts. But I still had that feeling that he was going to grow out of it. Even when he made me feel completely defeated every single night, I still thought he was just being an overactive, sassy little boy. Nobody could tell me different because he was still also my kind-hearted little mama's boy. Matthew's first day of kindergarten didn't go the way any parent would want. Trust me. I wasn't so nervous that year. I had the twins starting school, and Abby, my daughter, was starting first grade. It seemed like a lot for me all at once. But that's my life. It's like go big or go home. That is literally my motto. Go big or go home. Which is now why we have 8 kids. Now, most kindergarten mamas have only one child that they are sending off to school. Then these mamas worry themselves to death all damn day with, how's my baby doing? What are they doing right now? Oh, I really hope they're making friends. These mamas may be even possibly shedding some tears in the entire process. Then those children go home to their parents and tell them what happened every single second of that day with extreme excitement, making the mamas feel stupid for even worrying. I said most mamas in the beginning for one reason. I was the other parent, the 2%er. I was home with only one child while the other 3 were sent off to school. And I could hear the silence for once. The tears that I shed were tears of pure joy. I didn't have to stop 100 fights before it hit 10 a.m. I didn't have kids yelling, Matthew did it. It was pure bliss. I wasn't worried about the things normal kindergarten parents are worried about. I was more worried about my phone ringing. I didn't want that principal calling me about any of my children and ruining what I'm going to call my vacation. I know that sounds bad. I know. But if you were in my shoes at that point in life, you would have been worried about that fucking phone call also. I did my victory dance probably around 10:30ish with my only son that was there at the time, Garrett, and around noon on the first day of kindergarten, my phone did in fact ring. And it was the principal. I guess my victory dance was a little too early that day. Now, according to the principal, Matthew stood on top of the table when the teacher told him to sit in his seat. He got out of his chair many times throughout the day, just to hide under the table for no reason. Every time he did anything he wasn't supposed to, the other children in the classroom would laugh, which only fueled him, making him want to do even more like he always did. But the last straw for the kindergarten teacher happened right before story time. The students were instructed to sit in a circle near the chair that was in the corner of the classroom. Matthew, his ears must have heard something different, because while all of the other classmates pushed their chairs in and walked towards that chair in the corner, Matthew jumped on top of the classroom table, ran towards the chair in the corner, leaped off of the table, and landed on the floor, very close to the beanbag chair that I can only assume was his landing spot. Everyone in the classroom bursted out into laughter when this all happened, except for the teacher. Matthew was definitely sent to the principal's office, and that is where he stayed until I picked him up. Now, my husband would have won that bet that day because it was his first day. But it didn't get any better. Matthew's behavior only seemed to get worse as time went on. He was disrupting the other children from learning and didn't seem to be grasping onto anything that he was even being taught. He was having a hard time fitting in soon after his first day, and I can only imagine that's because no one wanted to play with the naughty boy. I don't know. But he spent more time in the principal's office than in the actual classroom. Now, I have to be honest here. This is when I started screening my phone calls. Yeah, I know that sounds bad. The school calls, I need to answer it. But hear me out. I was working third shift at the time, and Matthew's behavior was actually making it hard for me to even sleep. I was very quickly told by the school that Matthew needed to get into a doctor's office and get for an evaluation. I could not bring him back to school until he did. He needed to be a little bit more calmed down, and they wanted to do some testing at school as well. The teacher could see Matthew was lacking in most of the areas she had taught. However, his behavior made it hard for anyone to figure out what he actually needed. This was all heartbreaking to me, and I wasn't in denial. I knew Matthew was different. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to accept the reality at the time. I honestly thought he was going to grow out of all of it. I will say I did get lucky with the school that he was enrolled in, because they honestly helped me and guided me through all of the unknowns and were super patient with me for the most part. I was able to get Matthew in for some testing with a specialist, and then he was very quickly put on some medications. He was able to return to school, and the school then was able to test Matthew in a few different areas. After all of the results came back from the school, Matthew ended up being placed in an individual education program they call IEP for short. I was very hesitant about all of it for a bit. Once again, it was a lot to swallow down. And also, Matthew's dad and I were divorced, so it was a back and forth battle. So yeah, it was all a lot. It was a lot. But we knew we needed the best for our son. But that's what I get for living in denial for all those years. If I would have nipped it in the ass a little sooner, who knows? Matthew did in fact seem to calm down just a tiny bit after all of it was finalized. He was slowly adjusting to his new normals. I might be making myself believe that. Still, yeah. I'm probably only saying that to actually make myself feel better. Matthew was just having a hard time at home when it came to just about everything. Listening and just any kind of change were his two biggest problems. I was having to tell this kid to go sit in the corner more than any of our other children. No joke, I felt like I was running out of new spots in our house for him to sit in. I didn't think Matthew ever really listened to anything I said until he did the great thing of proving me wrong. It was the day he handed me my first homemade Mother's Day gift. It was an interview he did about me at school. It was all sweet. And then that one question they asked that hit my heart the hardest was, what does your mom always say to you? 99% of the children answered the question with, I love you. But Matthew's a little different. He answered with, Matthew, go sit in the corner. Yeah, the interview question was, what does your mother always say to you? And he said, Matthew, go sit in the corner. Talk about making me feel like the world's worst mom. Matthew stood in front of me with a huge smile on his face. I wanted to say something to him about that damn interview, maybe even ask him if he felt loved. Instead, I told him I loved it. He thought that was why I was crying. That little shit ran off yelling out to the other kids, I made mom cry. She loves my gift more. Ha ha ha. Oh, if he only knew. And if he listened to this, he would know, but he's not going to. When Matthew started IEP, he seemed to be having better days. And I'm only judging this off of the amount of phone calls I received. He had other kids in IEP that had the same, shall I say, problems. The classroom size was much smaller, so there were less kids for him to distract. And he was given different tools to even learn with. One day I had to pick Matthew up for an appointment. The front office told me I could go get him from the classroom. As I opened that classroom door, a little boy came running towards me. He recognized me as Matthew's mom, so he took it upon himself to yell out to Matthew while he stood in front of the door, not allowing me in. It was almost as if I was not allowed in their clubhouse or something, but I was able to just have enough communication with the occupants. I saw that Matthew didn't move a single muscle after he was told I was there. He was too busy with the Legos. Nothing was going to stop that. I myself was in a hurry, and I knew I needed to motivate Matthew somehow. The little boy in front of me wasn't moving a muscle either. He was holding the door open for me just enough to see inside. So I yelled out, Matthew, if you hurry up, we can go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. Not only did that McDonald's Happy Meal idea motivate Matthew, it also made the little boy that was guarding the door super excited. He said, oh, I love me some chicken nuggets. Now, I thought it was cute as hell. I smiled at him and I said, oh yeah? And then he looks up at me and goes, yep, can I have some chicken nuggets, Michael Jackson's mom? Michael Jackson's mom? Did he not see how see-through I was? Or I am? Matthew and I got out of there with just enough time. And as I promised, Matthew got his Happy Meal. I mean, that's what Michael Jackson's mom would do, right? I tried like hell to get all of our other children to call me Michael Jackson's mom after that. It never worked. I think, honestly, they're just jealous they aren't Michael Jackson mom's material. I don't know. Just saying. Little did I know, Matthew's elementary school days were just a teaser to me. It was like when you go to see what a movie is before you rent it and you don't want to waste your money and you play that trailer. That's what elementary school was for me. Just a little teaser. I had no clue what the hell I was in store for next. And thinking about it, I'm not really sure I would ever want to know. It was a lot. And to be honest, I'm here. I survived it all, and so did Matthew. But he did get very lucky on that, trust me. He almost didn't survive. Oh, man. Matthew had been diagnosed by his first specialist at that time with ADHD, emotional behavior disorder, depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia. Now, mind you, he was starting middle school, so he was like 9 and 10. That's a lot to be diagnosed with, but I had no questions about it for some reason. His medication list was way too long. He seemed to be actually struggling with the medication issues and all of their side effects more than what the actual root problem was and how the medication was supposed to fix or help with. I trusted the doctors through all of it and never looked into any of it. That was a big mistake on my part. By the time Matthew started middle school, I had changed over his specialty doctor because I met the new one and was like, whoa, I need you. The other one's shit. So his medications were changed around a bit. And he was either going through a withdrawal, he was taking off some, he was lower dose, higher dose of this. I never once questioned his first doctor's opinion or recommendations because he went to school for this shit. He had a degree. He had other doctors, around, like, he went to school for it. Like, what the hell? He knew more than I did. Who was I to question him? That is the mindset that I had until Matthew's new doctor. That is when I very quickly realized I had absolutely no clue what Matthew was really taking as far as medication. I mean, like, how bad it was for him. I also had no clue how many different options that we had for Matthew besides just the medication. So what I'm saying is take my advice. Learn as much as you can before you make any choices. Have patience with the process, even when it's difficult. And try as many different options as you can. Because no one fits into the perfect box. Everyone is different and unique. But most importantly, watch for all of the black warning labels when it comes to medication. Matthew's first doctor had him taking all kinds of black warning label medications at a very young age. And I was giving it to Matthew without any hesitation. I never realized what the black warning labels were and what they could do to my son. He ended up missing way too many school days because he was sick or he was seeing things or this and that from all of those. Like, he wanted to die one time. It was just nuts. And it was hard to watch. All of that change didn't exactly help Matthew's behavior at all. Middle school was going to be a fresh start for Matthew. And I made sure to remind him of that over and over. I was hoping that if I kept telling him that, like a broken freaking record, it would click in his brain. I think the only thing that clicked was all the ways he could make me go crazy. He made me crazy. I tell him that, but he don't need to know the truth. Once they all the kids started middle school, because we had quite a bit all in middle school at once. We had moved out of the school area, so they actually had to start riding the bus. So the whole entire elementary school days, they were getting dropped off by me. Now they're riding the bus. And let me tell you, I stopped actually looking for all of the bus slips that I did save when I was preparing for this episode because there were way too many. Matthew was actually warned to knock it off more than 20 times a year. The bus driver had to stop just to get him to listen more than 25 times. Matthew was kicked off of the bus over 35 times, and he was suspended from riding the bus every single year that he attended middle school for at least 1 month. As mad as I was every single time that it happened, I realize now I cannot be mad at that bus driver. Because I was mad all the time. Because now I gotta drive you to school, what the fuck? But I didn't know how the bus driver didn't lose his shit once I started reading what the slips actually said. Because whenever they were handed to me, do you think I actually read that? No, I looked at it, saw that it was a slip, and I got pissed. So here's some of what I found before I gave up. Matthew got in trouble for hopping from seat to seat, screaming a song, making loud screeching noises. He still does those and I hate it. Running up and down the aisle, throwing objects, hitting the bus driver in the head with an object that he meant to hit someone else with, starting fights with siblings, starting fights with other students, not listening, go figure, swearing at the bus driver, and oh, I am sure there is plenty more I am missing that I could have added to that list, but like I said, I decided to stop looking through all the slips. It gave me a few more strands of gray hair when I even think about it. And I don't want or need any more of those. Lord knows I have enough. One thing I was extremely thankful for the entire time was the staff at the middle school. We were lucky enough to have the same principal as we did while they were all attending elementary school. The principal knew Matthew very well and knew how to handle all of his behaviors. I say we, but it's more like I was extremely lucky Matthew had the same principal. It saved me time. I didn't have to actually sit down and explain Matthew. That would take hours, years maybe. Plus, that principal went above and beyond for our family. For example, instead of calling me and having me pick Matthew up from school, the principal would stop whatever he was doing and personally drive Matthew home. I would literally be sitting there watching a show with my grandma and chatting away in our living room about the show we're watching, and all of a sudden our front door would swing open. Matthew would be walking in with a smile, and following him right behind him is, well, Mrs. Schultz, we didn't have a great start to the day, did we, Matthew? But we talked on the way here, and we're going to have a better day tomorrow. Isn't that right, Matthew? And then he would make himself comfortable on our kitchen bench. This happened more times than I'd like to admit. It happened so much that the principal and my grandma ended up forming a bond and would be actually happy to see each other every single time. I'm pretty sure this happened because I screened my phone calls one too many times and they caught on. That's just a theory I'm throwing out there. I was afraid to ask. The man was saving me gas money, all right? Especially when Matthew decided to kick his sassy behavior up a notch or two, and I didn't even think that was possible. I will never forget the day my phone went off, letting me know that, I got an email of a notification. I grabbed my phone to see if it was anything important, and it was an email from the middle school saying that they had to lock down the school for a period of time. The email made sure to let all of the parents know that it was just a precaution and everything was okay. I looked at my phone screen for a bit. I just went, okay, whatever. And then I set my phone back down and went on with my day, completely forgetting about that email. I would ask the kids eventually, Then our kids start trickling into the house off the bus, and I get bombarded with, Matthew got in big trouble today. Matthew was hiding in the bathroom, Mom. Mom, Matthew put the school on lockdown. What? I was never called. I was completely clueless about the entire situation. I thought it was some, like maybe just a practice drill. Matthew came into the house after everyone else did, and they all tattled on him. He tried acting like nothing happened. But hearing my other kiddos tell me he was acting up and remembering the email I received, Matthew wasn't getting away with this cute little, I don't know what you're talking about. I called the school to verify the information our Brady Bunch had told me, and sure shit, Matthew indeed had the school on lockdown. He didn't want to go to class, so he thought he would hang out in the bathroom. The whole middle school went on lockdown till they found him. Matthew knew exactly what was going on the whole damn time. He just didn't give a shit. He never thought about the consequences. I grounded him and thought I handled the situation pretty well. I say it that way because I was losing my shit with Matthew more than I wanted to. I never wanted him to look back on his upbringing and only remember me freaking out on him all the time. Damn time. But hot damn, you're making it hard. And he never made it easy. The second time he put the school on lockdown, yeah, I'd said that. He put the school on lockdown. The second time, he was missing for 2 hours. Literally 2 hours. That kid realized the bathroom wasn't the greatest hiding spot since, he got caught the last time. But nobody would ever look for him in his own locker. The lockers were almost impossible to fit into, so nobody would think to look there. And Matthew wasn't wrong. It took him 2 hours. The look on the staff's face when they found my son stuffed into his locker was priceless, I was told. Matthew tried saying it was a prank, but the school, they didn't think it was as funny as he did. And neither did I at the time. Now I look back at the whole situation with a big, what the fuck? How in the hell was he comfortable in that freaking locker for 2 whole hours? Oh my, it was such a tiny space. And what the fuck was he thinking? I have to say, props to him. That's some dedication right there. He was going big and, going home also because he had put the school on lockdown. He managed to put that middle school on lockdown a few more times after that. I shit you not. Whenever I got a notification on my phone showing me I had received an email from the middle school, I could feel my asshole tighten up. As I said out loud, I swear to God, if it's about my kid, I'm going to do, something. Before I go any further, I need to throw this out there. Matthew was not a terrible child. He was very impulsive, fast, didn't listen well, made things harder than they needed to be. However, he was also a child with mental health issues, autism, and learning disabilities. Any one of those that I just listed makes it hard to make friends. Matthew was a very lonely and misunderstood child, and he still is. He was also different. Different isn't always accepted when you are a child. I may be making excuses here, but I caught myself punishing him for what I felt like everything. And then later on, I'd be crying in bed, wondering what the hell was I doing wrong? Or wondering if he was ever going to get better. He frustrated me like no other. But I love him, and I never gave up. I never gave up because he is still living with me and having a hard time. I have to remind him still to take showers, and I don't mean to offend him that way, but I'm just saying he's different. He has the mindset of maybe like a 12-year-old, and I say that because he fights with our 12-year-old like he's the same damn age. Even though I did all of that, even though I thought I couldn't handle anymore. 99.99% of the time, after Matthew got into trouble, he would write me a letter telling me how sorry he was and how he would try to be better for me. And every damn time I got one of those letters, no matter how upset I was with him, no matter how serious the situation was, those letters would hit me hard. Make me feel a feeling, as my husband says. It reminded me that Matthew did have a good heart and wasn't always sassy. He was just having a rough time. Ugh. Matthew knew exactly how to keep me going. He had enough practice at all of that, that is for sure. Matthew had eaten the most expensive cookie dough I have ever come across while he was attending middle school. I mean, it cost him and me, of course, a court date, 20 hours of community service, and a $50 fine, and some gas money. I didn't tell my husband about the $50 fine, but he's going to find out when he hears this, so sorry, honey. We paid $50 for that 75-cent freaking cookie dough. All because Matthew thought it tasted so good, and he didn't want to ask us for 3/4. I wanted to kick some ass, but what I ended up doing instead was paying the damn fine, signing us up for the Salvation Army for ringing bells, and bought hot cocoa for whoever wanted to join us as we rang bells. Whenever Matthew complained about being cold as we rang those bells, I made sure to remind him why we were even there. I even barely scratched the surface here. When it comes to Matthew and all of his shenanigans, he frustrates me like no other. But I love him madly. And although I have been through hell and back with him, I'm honestly not sure I would change any of it. He actually ended up teaching me so many things throughout the years. Some things I would have even thought of. I mean, I had no clue it hurt to get a haircut or that hair had feelings until Matthew told me so. I had no clue tags on any clothing should be boycotted until Matthew came along. That the beauty of autism and all of his other diagnoses, the patience is the key. I have learned to try to find that inner patience or find an open field to scream in. If you take anything away from this episode, I hope it's what I'm about to share. Educate yourself as much as possible before placing your child on any kind of medication. Educate yourself on any diagnosis and don't be afraid to second guess a doctor and get a different opinion. Never think tomorrow will be the same. Every day is different and should be treated as such. In other words, try like hell to not drag any problems from the previous day into your new day. And also, next time you see me, I am Michael Jackson's mother. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting me. It means the world to me. Now do me, Michael Jackson's mom, a favor and embrace the weird and go make normal feel boring again.